Good morning, welcome back to the Genius Multi-Channel. Time to break some news the old-fashioned way, like we used to do it back at the beginning of the channel. Some horrible handwriting, mine, piece of paper. We may not get into the artistic realm. If you remember, there were times where I would do some artistic drawings. We're not going to do that today. We do have some props here. We've got some gold, we've got some silver, and in my writing you can see what was my attempt at relaying the news to you with pencil, and that is the current price of Bitcoin. I'll try to zoom in on that so you can see it, and the ratio to gold and silver. When I last checked it before I set up the camera and the coins here, Bitcoin sat at $8,261.77. Gold sat at $1,278. You saw this morning there was a precipitous drop there as the profit takers and the cokeheads of Wall Street dumped their paper contracts on gold to reap the profits of the previous spike we saw a couple days ago. Now we also have silver sitting at $16.91, also sold off, dipping once again below that $17 mark. And that leaves us with a Bitcoin to silver ratio of 488 ounces to 1 Bitcoin. Ridiculous. I know it's not logic or reason at this point. And it stirs up a lot of questions in my mind as to the value of, I guess, what people value. Is it code? Is it lines of code held in encrypted, cryptocurrencies in the computers? Or is it the ancient wealth that's been on the planet for years? And I tried to have a conversation with someone recently regarding gold and Bitcoin, silver and Bitcoin, and we really couldn't get anywhere because we didn't share a common value of what we considered to be a unit of account, a unit of exchange, a monetary unit, something that we could exchange mutually for goods and services. There was kind of a breakdown in communication there. Let's zoom out so we can take a look at the metals a little bit better, because that's the roots of this channel, and that's our passion. So let's talk about, we'll look at gold first here. This is what's really blowing my mind right now. And here we have 6 ounces of gold. Look at this. This is just, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, friends of the channel, please look here. This is 6, and then here's the half. We'll put the half right there. 6 ounces of gold. That right there represents 1 Bitcoin, 1 line of code at this point in time. And that should be disturbing to some people. I mean, I do believe Bitcoin has some form of a utility at some point, possibly. At this point, it's just being traded. It's becoming a fad. It's becoming a fervor, and what we see is more and more people jumping in because it's so hot. I believe the young people, they term things like that fire. It's so fire right now. Will it last? Will it go higher? There's a lot of people saying things like, oh, if it's under 100,000, it's on sale. I believe the complexities of Bitcoin, and I've spent some time recently trying to learn how to use it. That's what I told you guys I would do in order to have a more informed opinion based on my experiences. I've ventured into using very little amount of the cryptocurrencies and exploring how they work, how to move them, trade them, transact with them. And one thing I have noticed is it's a steep learning curve. Once you do learn it, you can do it. I was able to execute some transactions as far as trading it, and that's really what I found that all people are doing right now. Everyone's buying it, holding it, or trading it, trying to flip it and make a quick buck. It's not being used yet as they thought, as a currency or a medium or a unit of exchange, a unit of account. I was reading some articles this morning just based on the history of gold in the U.S. economy, in the world economy, in trade, and how, and the reason why, we've talked about this so much on this channel, and sometimes I feel like I'm beating a dead horse. but how it is really the basis for all wealth. And all of the currencies are always tied to it. There's always a peg on gold. And that is why it's held in vaults. That is why central banks hoard it, purchase it. All certificates at some point, all contracts at one point were tied to gold. And at this point, I would not give you, I guess this is free market right here, and this is my position, this is my opinion. I would not give this 6 1/2 ounces of gold. I would not exchange that for a line of code. Because here's something I want to show you. This 6 1/2 ounces of gold will exist in perpetuity, forever. Let's pretend for a moment my roof collapses under 12 feet of volcanic ash because of a major volcanic explosion somewhere in my region. And I was buried, and I'm sitting here, and the chess set that sits over here, they're all buried. The eggs on my counter are buried. And it's somewhat like Pompeii, the Herculaneum. And in 1,000, 2,000 years, they dig me up. They dig me up. My little skeleton's here making this video. They fill it with plaster of Paris, and I'm on display in a museum, hunched over a table with a chess set and a pile of gold and silver. And they would have all kinds of theories about why and how that happened, but only you guys would really know. The internet's pretty much gone. Who knows what else happened on the earth between now and 1,000 years. These 6 1/2 ounces of gold would still hold value, purchasing power, wealth. I would say and argue, based on history, the same amount of purchasing power they hold today, whatever that would translate into. I don't know what people are wearing. Maybe they're wearing togas again, and one of these would buy a really nice toga, or a nice, who knows what people are wearing or using then. This might be able to buy a nice plasma pistol. I don't truly believe, and I'm not going to say that based on the last 9 years, or let's see, Bitcoin came out in 2009 or around there, right? So that gives us 8, let's see, 7, yeah. So the last, we'll just call it a decade, the decade of cryptocurrency from back then till now, a little less than a decade or so. So based on human history, I'm not going to say that those have staying power yet. Yeah, they're hot right now. Well, you know what? There was a lot of internet companies that were pretty hot in the 90s. They're no longer around. You got to ask yourself, would you trade? And this is a question to all of you on the channel. Would you trade 6 1/2 ounces of gold for 1 Bitcoin right now? You got to give it up. Take that physical gold off the table, exchange it for a line of code. And for those of you that are more heavily invested in the silver world, would you in fact give 488 ounces of silver? Almost, it's getting close to a monster box. A full monster box of 500. Let's call it that just for the sake of this video. Would you give a monster box of silver eagles for 1 Bitcoin? I don't know. I would not at this point. I'll dabble a little bit. I'll throw some fiat dollars that way. You know, when I don't have enough fiat dollars to purchase myself some metals, I'll throw a couple bucks, $5, $10, into that Coinbase account that I started just for the simple reason of dabbling. I'm dabbling with it, gambling with it, playing the game, seeing how it works. And I've learned a little bit about it, and I've had some entertainment value from it. But is it a place that I'm willing to place my bet permanently, to hedge my dynasty on? You know, I've referred to that on this channel before. Your dynasty, your legacy, your family's wealth. Does it have staying power or not? You know, a lot of people are getting caught up in the hype and the excitement. A lot of people are gobbling up these cryptos. And if you have money to gamble and you already have a nice stash of wealth set aside, you have some metals put aside, a lot of them, a lot of metals, and you're like, yeah, I want to gamble, I'm going to throw a little bit at the crypto world. I'm not going to tell you not to, because I spent several years telling people not to buy crypto, and that just, well, like some of you have vouched for me and been kind enough to say, well, Junius, you're not wrong yet. It could still collapse, it could still crash. Yes, but we have missed out on making some pretty fat gains, some pretty nice gains that we could have moved back into metals at some point. You know, it would have been nice to purchase Bitcoin back at $300, $400, $500, $600 and then be dumping it now and locking those gains into gold and silver. Because I do believe right now we are seeing a point where metals are being ignored. It's, okay, analogy time. This is an analogy that's been used in other stories. And I'm not the one that invented it, but we're going to use it with metals. Gold and silver, we'll just say gold for now. She's like that, the girl that was kind of homely looking maybe in 7th and 8th grade. Didn't look too good. Maybe even in high school. Didn't look too good. Kind of a nerd. And then no one paid attention. No one paid attention to her. And then high school goes by, everyone goes off to college. Maybe you come back to your hometown several years later, and you happen to bump into that girl. We'll just call her Goldilocks. And old Goldilocks, well, now she's beautiful. And everyone's paying attention to her. That could be the situation that gold is in right now. Gold is in middle school, and no one's paying attention to her. Because everyone else and everything else is so hot right now. There's Bitcoin, we'll just call her Betty. And because Betty's looking so good, everyone's paying attention to Betty. Well, who knows? After college, Betty might not look so good. Might not look so good. And, well, you get the point. We don't know what the future exactly holds for these things. Could something else, something new or something better come along, where the attention shifts away from Bitcoin and the price plummets, which it could do. Here's another example. Look at just last week. Bitcoin went from $7,900, hit $7,900, and then plummeted down to like 5,900 or 5,500. It just, 47% of its value, I read, collapsed. And then, boom, it rockets back up to $8,200 today. You know, it's these huge volatile swings in value. What would people be writing about and saying about gold if today gold was $1,300 and tomorrow gold was $700, and then the next day or 3 days later gold was $1,500? It would get some negative press. And what's really funny is the amount of people I used to read, even in the last 2 years. Do you remember the comments we would see? There were comments, guys would come on the channel and just to troll me because they knew I was a gold hawk. And when I say gold hawk, that doesn't mean I hawk gold. That means I am very pro and predatory. I don't like the gold bug term. I like the gold hawk term. It's just a little bit cooler sounding. But there were people who would come on the channel and they would tell me, oh man, gold's going back to 700. Gold's going to go to 700, then 6, then 5. And I would argue that it's not. And I would talk about the support base there at around 1140, about the various central banks that locked in at certain prices. And we would discuss why I believed gold, and I still believe this. I do not believe in your lifetime or in my lifetime we will see gold below 1100 again, ever, in US dollars. It's not going to happen. And I truly believe that. So if you look at gold as a floor, as a base at 1100, and it's sitting right now at around, what did I write down earlier? 12.78. So we're $178 above what I consider the floor, the base of gold. Now ask yourself, do you think the floor, the base, the minimum value of Bitcoin we will ever see again in our lifetime is $8,199 $161, because that would have to be the floor. Let's write that down for you guys. This is really getting back to the roots of the channel. Pencils and coins. Pencils and coins here. All right, so what we're talking about here, we'll move this over. Here's the value of Bitcoin right now. Stay where you got gold. Do you think that this is the base value forever of Bitcoin? It's never going to go below that again. Do you think that's possible? Of course not. Anyone who would say that would be a fool. Now, do you think the base value of gold is around 1100? Because that's what I believe it is. Comma goes over here. Yes, I know that. Okay, look at that horrible writing. I'm scribbling with this, the devil's hand, left-handed here. Alrighty. So there's what I believe the minimum value of gold is. 1,000. And I think it's worth far more than that, my friends. But that is the value that I believe it will not drop below, based on a lot of things that I've read, a lot of things that I've studied. Okay, I've talked about it for years on this channel. I actually think it's more like 1140, but 1100, we'll just call it 1100. So when you lock in on gold right now, if you had $1 million and you locked in 700,000, 500,000 into gold, would you be confident in not looking at it for 10 years, 20 years? If I told you you had to lock up $500,000 for 25 years right now, and you could only buy two things, you had two choices. You could buy Bitcoin at today's prices or gold at today's prices. Which would you choose? Has to be locked up for 25 years. You can't even look at it, you can't touch it, you can't move it. I can tell you right now, with confidence, 25 years locked up, 500,000 US fiat dollars, this would not be my choice. This would be. Because I can't guarantee that. I can guarantee that based on thousands upon thousands of years of human history. Alright, that's my point. That is the channel's topic of discussion for today. Jump down in the comments. Tell me what you think. Gold, silver, Bitcoin, locking up wealth for decades. What do you trust? What do you believe? Where would you stake your bets?